Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes made a huge transfer portal addition. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monarch Money. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Thank you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Let's talk about it. The Buffs have been active in the portal, right? They went out and got the offensive lineman from Memphis. He was graded out as the best player on their team, according to PFF. He's probably going to slide into the left guard or right guard position. According to a report by Scott Proctor, he's expected to play inside, so don't expect him to be on the opposite tackle spot, opposite of Jordan Seaton. But either way, they get more depth on the offensive line, and they also bolster a wide receiver room that is probably, of the three wide receiver rooms Deion Sanders has had, I would say this one is probably the most unproven, and from a general perspective, looks like the weakest unit overall, right? At least just compared to what they had, right? First year, they had Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn. Xavier Weaver was one of USF's all-time leading receivers. Jimmy Horn was a guy, right? Travis Hunter, a star, right? They kind of had three really stout receivers, and then Omarion Miller kind of rotated in here and there, and it was kind of like they had a pretty solid trio a couple years ago, right? And even, I think, who else am I missing, right? They had Mikey Harrison, who had some big plays. Javon Antonio, Tavares Dawson were both guys that provided depth every once in a while. So that group was decent, right? They had Dylan Edwards at running back as well. And then this past year was the best wide receiver group that they've had. They get Travis Hunter back, LeJonte Wester from FAU, who second on the team in catches, 931 yards, 10 touchdowns. Will Shepard, who comes in from the SEC, was very proven. Jimmy Horn ended up being like the fourth receiver. And all four of those guys are probably going to be drafted or at least go to an NFL team. So this year's Colorado wide receiver core, I think they have a lot of potential. I think they're obviously the most unproven. And from an initial standpoint, I would say they're not as strong as the past year. And I don't think that's an unpopular take, but they did get a little bit stronger over the past couple of days because they landed Sincere Brown, who's transferring in from FCS program Campbell, and started his career at USF, Charleston, South Carolina product. He's really had an interesting career, right? He starts in 2020 at USF, or started his career, has one catch for 19 yards, and then doesn't record a stat until this past season. At Campbell, 61 catches, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, almost 17 yards per catch. He had a contested catch rate of 38%, which is okay. He's 6'5", 190 pounds, and I think he brings a lot that this Colorado team is lacking, I guess you could say, on the outside, right? You have a really big receiver. I think he could step into that Will Shepard role, because you look at, not that it matters how big a receiver is, right? Because there's been ginormous receivers who are terrible, and there's been super small receivers who have been really good. But you look at the guys who they're bringing back, right? And it's Draylon Miller. He's 6'1". Omarion Miller, he's listed as 6'2". All the freshmen, not that big, right? I know there's a couple. We'll just pull up the heights too. They're a smaller group, right? The Colorado doesn't have a monster height wide receiver, right? Adrian Wilson's 6 foot. Quanell is 5'11 and a half. Quentin Gibson is 5'9", and so they bring in a bigger body, right? And I think that's sort of, I don't want to say that's what they've been missing. Joseph Williams is also 6'2". He's a little bit bigger than him. And that makes life easier for I almost said Jadon. Caden Salter and Julian Lewis, combine the two of them. Hey, I think if you combine the two of them, new podcast episode, if you combined Caden Salter and Julian Lewis, are they the best quarterback in college football? I would say so, probably, right? I think they had the tangibles. No, just kidding. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Sincere Brown, right? Big dude, racked up a lot of stats last year on a Campbell team that was 3-9. So there's a couple ways you look at it, right? It's like, okay, they had to force feed him because he was tall, and just whatever, blah, blah, blah. You could sort of take away from his accomplishments, or you can look at what Campbell had at quarterback and go, he put up nearly twice as many catches, right? And there's almost twice as many as the next receiver on his team with two quarterbacks who were very mediocre. I feel like that's a better pitch. So you're bringing in a guy who overachieved with less, and you're going to put him in an offense that specializes in getting receivers open, an offense with probably Caden Salter at quarterback, so a very veteran, proven quarterback, former Conference USA MVP, NFL play caller, a lot of talent around him. And I think that could help him take the next step, right? I think that could help Colorado take the next step. I think their wide receiver situation will be really interesting to see this upcoming week during the spring game, because when you lose 4 guys to the NFL, that's tough to replace. I think having Draylon and Omarion they didn't have huge roles last year, but I think them being there will move mountains for them. Now they just have to take advantage of that experience and really play into it. But again, I think adding Sincere Brown certainly doesn't hurt, right? Worst case scenario, he's a guy that they use in red zone situations. Worst case scenario, he's Javon Antonio, right? There's no shade to Javon Antonio. I feel like he had a couple bright moments here or there, but he's a big body dude. Sincere is big body. And I think there's a lot of potential in this offense. So we'll just have to wait and see how he does. I'm excited to see what he does in Boulder. When we come back, Deion Sanders says no to Nico Imialiava. Wow, tough name to say. But he says no to him. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monarch Money. Let me tell you about Monarch Money, because they're the best place for you to manage your money. Every check your bank account, wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. They have all-in-one convenience, so it's instead of juggling multiple apps where you have to go, okay, I spent this much here, this much there. You can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Coach Prime says no to Nico. So the other day, I did an episode on Nico, the Tennessee quarterback. Wow, I can't say it today. You know who I'm talking about, though. Imialiava. There we go. He's in the portal, right? He kind of burns Tennessee, and the reports just keep getting worse and worse. I think it's a reminder to these young athletes, don't surround yourself with idiots or people who are more invested in making money for themselves than you. Because his team, I don't want to specify who it was because I don't know the ins and outs of it, but not even rumor, it's reported. His team has been demanding money from Tennessee since the playoff, right? They were threatening that Nico would sit out of the playoff if he wasn't paid more. Ended up getting blown out. And then they were threatening Tennessee again in the winter portal, like, hey, give us $4 million or we're out. And they didn't leave. And then all of a sudden, the negotiations ramped back up over the past few days. And it's like, give us $4 million or we're out. And it was revealed that Dan Lanning kind of ratted on them, which shout out to Dan Lanning, right? I don't think it's Nico's fault for wanting more money. But I also, right now, there's no rules set on anything. So you can't be mad that the school said, see ya, we're good. So Dan Lanning basically rats Nico out and he's in the portal. And all of a sudden, it's USC, it's Notre Dame, it's Texas Tech. They sort of emerge as like the hot names. And it's like, no, thank you. They all say no, thank you. And then people started throwing out Colorado. People kept asking me. People kept writing about it, tweeting about it. Does Colorado bring in Nico? And it's one of those things where it's like, if Nico entered the portal during the winter and Colorado hadn't taken Caden Salter, maybe, right? Like, I don't think you could be against that. I don't think you could sort of be against a former 5-star who has playoff experience, but he didn't. And it's just one of those things where it's like, he doesn't right now, I feel like they have a better quarterback situation without Nico. But either way, people were tweeting that there was a report that Nico had been in contact with 3 schools, which was Oregon, Ohio State, and Colorado. And Coach Prime responded, "Not true," and God bless, we good, on X, that is. So he goes, "Not true," aka the reports are not true. That Colorado was reaching out to Nico, and then he says, "You know what? Let me take it a step further. We're good." And so I know a lot of people got upset with me when I was talking about it. I was like, I'm not talking about it because I want it to happen, right? I literally made the case, and I'll make my case again really briefly. Coach Prime, Nico wants $4 million and just quit on his team. And apparently tried to quit on his team 3 times in like the span of 4 months. Don't love that. So he's expensive, quits on his team. I think he's overrated. I don't think he's worth $4 million. And like I said, I think Caden Salter and Julian Lewis, right now, I would take them probably over Nico, right? Caden Salter is more proven, even though it wasn't at the highest, it wasn't a Power 5 team. He played well in 2023, right? He was a Conference USA MVP. I think he played much better than Nico has in his career. I think Julian Lewis has a higher ceiling than Nico. So right there, you have someone who I think is better right now, and then you have another guy who has a higher ceiling, and it's like, okay, what are we talking about here? We don't need him, right? So I never thought Colorado should have gone after him. I was just saying it's not happening. And then Coach Prime, of course, confirmed it as well. So for those who were all worked up and saying, oh my gosh, why is he talking about it? It's like, because it's a thing. It's a conversation, right? People were like, could Colorado make a splash? Because you know what? Some team who, and this is how the transfer portal works these days, some team who went into the winter portal and probably got someone else or maybe didn't get someone, and they were like, okay, we just have what we have, a quarterback. They now have a second opportunity to land a guy who's probably a top, I don't know, 30 quarterback, top 25 quarterback in college football. I think that someone's going to take that swing, right? It's not looking like it's going to be a blue blood like it was initially reported. Like the reports were like, oh, USC, Notre Dame, Ohio State. And it's like, no. Like right now it's looking like it's UCLA, Tulane, North Carolina was in the mix. And then earlier in the day, they were like, actually, we're good. So Colorado is set at quarterback. Coach Prime says no to Nico. First of all, if I'm the quarterback room, I have to love that because I think Colorado has a really stout quarterback room, right? I think Caden's going to start. I think Juju has a very bright future and maybe one of the reasons that kept Coach Prime in Boulder. And I think Ryan Staub is probably deserving of a little bit more respect in that quarterback room. I don't know if he'll ever get it. I don't know if he's going to stay with the team throughout if they're going to lose in the portal or not. I don't know. But Ryan Staub is a guy who's come in. He's performed when needed. So I really like that quarterback room. And I think Nico would have been a toxic addition. I think his camp is toxic. I think his camp is, a terrible camp, right? I think, like I said, it goes back earlier to these athletes are getting advice from people who are more invested in putting money in their own pocket than they are in the betterment of that player's career. So Nico's people around him are like, hey, Nico, we think this is a great idea. And then it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, you're going to be transferring to Tulane after being at an SEC program, one of the premier SEC programs, by the way, and you're going to end up at Tulane or UCLA. So you're either going G5 with Tulane or you're going to UCLA, who's bottom barrel of the Big Ten. And obviously they can't afford a $4 million player. So it's like, okay, where does he go next, right? And there's a screenshot out there, which you guys all know the account. It's Blue Blood College Football. It's something like that. Blue Blood Ballers or whatever it is. It's the account that always tweets reports or quote unquote reports. And they shared a DM from Nico's dad. And it was like, oh, he's got offers for more than $4 million, right? He's going to get paid way more. And it's like, I don't know who this guy thinks like he's talking to. Like, does he think he's talking to like Pete Thamel or like Scott Boras, the agent extraordinaire? Like, who does he think he's talking to? He's talking to some random social media person who thinks that because Nico's dad said they're going to get $4 million or more, Nico's going to get $4 million more. Nico's not getting $4 million. I'd be shocked. Assuming that no like blue blood program or no larger Big Ten program, because the Big Ten is sort of the wild card in all this, right? They're the only conference I think that really will come in and be like, yeah, we need this guy and we'll give him some money. I don't think there's any out there or many out there. And so it's like, okay, I don't think he's going to get more than $4 million, and I don't think he's going to make what he was making at Tennessee. So, like I said, he's got terrible advice, and I hope the best for the kid, but tough situation to be in. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Shedeur and Travis Hunter getting their jerseys retired. Is it deserving? Isn't too soon? Let's talk about it. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trade. Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support, industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk about it. I'm sitting there watching the WNBA draft, doing some WNBA draft content for Athlon Sports, and all of a sudden I get an email from Colorado, and it says, hey, we're retiring Travis Hunter, number 12, and Shedeur Sanders' number 2. And the statement says the Colorado Buffaloes will retire uniforms number 2 and 12 to honor Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter at the annual spring game as a part of Black and Gold Day, Saturday at 2:30. Now, I think a lot of people are going to hate on this online, but I think if you look at it from a perspective of like what they did for this program, they transcended it, right? And I don't think they're going to get enough credit because people are going to look at Shedeur Sanders' quarterback record and be like, okay, he went 9-4 his first year, and then I think it was 4-7 his second year or first year. He goes 4-7 as a starter because he missed the last game, and then he goes 9-4 this past year. So it's like we're retiring a jersey for 13-11, and I think there's so much more to that. Starting with Shedeur, here's just some of his accomplishments, right? I think I'm going to highlight the accomplishments and sort of talk about why I think they deserved it anyway. During his 2 seasons at Colorado, 7,300 yards passing, 64 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. He completed 70% of his passes over his career for 14,353 yards, the 134 touchdowns and 27 picks. Threw a touchdown in the NCAA Division I record, 49 straight games. This is only one of 2 D1 quarterbacks to throw for 14,000 yards and complete 70% of his passes. Despite only playing in 2 seasons, he has over 100 school records, right? So you're telling me a guy that breaks 100 school records shouldn't have his jersey retired? I'll tell you to shut the hell up. No one cares what you got to say. Other notable accomplishments. He career record for passing touchdowns, pass rating, completion percentage, top 2 passing seasons for completion percentage and quarterback rating, and 2 of the top 3 for passing yards. Interception percentage, best of all time at Colorado history, 300-yard games and games with 3+ touchdown passes. Owns the record from all. Travis's jersey. I mean, Travis's jersey goes without saying, right? Heisman winner. Shedeur was Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. Johnny Unitas Golden Arm winner. Travis, on the other hand, wins the Heisman, Walter Camp, AP, and Sporting News Player of the Year. Paul Hornung Award, Most Versatile Player, twice. Ben and Derek Award, Lot Impact Trophy, Blitnikoff Award for Best Receiver. First Team All-American. Pretty much did it all during his career. 100 at Colorado, only 153 receptions, nearly 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, receiving a rushing touchdown. On defense, 67 tackles, 7 interceptions, 16 pass breakups, forced a fumble against Baylor, game winner as well. Played 2,652 snaps in 2 seasons, despite missing what added up to be 5 games. So, Defensive Player of the Year for the Buffs, or for the Big 12, literally one of the best players of all time. I think I talked about this. I don't remember. It was towards the end of the season. It was during the Heisman chatter. And I was like, you know how I just know how Travis Hunter's a legend? I'm going to tell my kids about him, right? When you have a player who is so great, it's like you have to tell the next generation about him and be like, you'll never know. Back in my day, like when I'm hitting my kids with a back in my day, I'm going to be talking about Travis Hunter. He was a generational talent. I don't know if we'll ever see what he did again. I think people will try to replicate it, but it's a difference between replicating and duplicating. And I think people are going to try it, but I don't think they'll succeed. And so really interesting move by Colorado. I think honoring them, probably more of a Deion Sanders push than anything, but I think it's warranted. I think it's deserved, right? I think Colorado needs some stuff to be excited about. And they got him out of the barrel. And I don't think people are going to really address that enough, is they got Colorado out of the depths of college football. And now the program is in a prime position to succeed. So I think if all the success that they have after they leave, or even if there's not much success, what they did in this 3-year span, going from 1-11 to 9-4, contending for the Big 12 and the playoff, insurmountable for the program, probably insurmountable for Deion Sanders' career, and they deserve to be honored. So shout out to them. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow.